I'm going to turn my camera off anyway. I don't mind being on the video, Carl, you know that, but um, uh, I'm, I don't want to distract from the attention from yourself.
Well, you are really handsome, so that's going to happen. Okay, so this conversation is part of the Agile 20 Reflect Festival. I need to change that. It's actually over 800 events, and we're still getting them. I saw one come in this morning, so that's really exciting. If you use Twitter, or in fact, if you don't use Twitter, if you use any social media, if you could hashtag my Agile 20 Reflect if you are wanting to post around this conversation that we're having. We'll actually use that to look through social media to see what impact the festival's had. And obviously the website's still there and still getting updated. We're getting new pages all the time, which is kind of interesting. So the entire festival is run by volunteers. Several of us can't remember what sleep is like. We thought it would calm down during the month of February so we could go to everything. That hasn't really been the case. We decided early, with the help of the Red Team, not to accept sponsorship, but we did recognize we needed some financial support to get this going. At one point, we'd only spent £12. We spend quite a lot more than that now, and so we're seeking donations. So if you want to say thank you for what you're receiving and give us a donation, I don't know, we get donations from £5 and up, or give us 50 pence. It's about you, not about the amount. So all the events adhere to a code of conduct, which took quite a while to create, and was a response to things that we weren't certain were right things that were happening. So the code of conduct is essentially for you, not for me. Even though I'm involved with the organisation, if you say there's a problem with this event, it will go to our ethics team, and they will investigate me. Or if you feel unsafe, please protect yourself. This is really important. I know social media is not as social as it's made out to be, so please ensure your own safety and that you feel that you are protected within this community, that it's a safe space. And the festival is definitely open. Please, if you haven't been to much, like Michael, who's obviously, 51 events in 2 weeks. I mean, for goodness sake. So take advantage of it. The archive has got some videos available already. And I know most of the central team will be spending most of March going through the archive, seeing all the stuff they missed. So off to the talk. Now, I've not muted everyone. What I'm going to try and do is what I'm describing as a number of vignettes rather than doing a talk. And the reason I'd like to do that is because I'm really interested in what we as a community think about what I'm sharing here. What I'm sharing is based around my experience and is not pushing a specific agenda. I just want to expose some thoughts that I've gained from being involved in organizational agility. So this picture was not chosen by accident. So the big question is, why did I choose this picture? It's really important, actually, when we're thinking about organizations, to understand how they currently operate. If you're going to bring any kind of change, then change in its own determination causes an impact upon every person. But what are we really seeing here? What we're seeing is instinct. We're seeing fish moving together, but why? There are a number of technical reasons that fish go in a shoal, and one of the reasons is purely by instinct. They know that this is the best way to work. They do so by doing this. They actually gain immediate benefits. They gain the benefits of reduced expenditure of energy, because the shoal itself, as it moves, has less friction. I don't understand the dynamics of it, and maybe someone on this call does, but that's one of the benefits. So they conserve energy. They use less energy to work. to move about. It's also easy to find food and to eat. And lastly, it's a defensive position against most predators because they appear massive. They're small by themselves, but together they're massive.
Carl, sorry.
Yep.
Your screen's gone blank.
Oh, that's not good. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Right, so I'm going to stop my video on this, but go back to sharing the screen. So hopefully that will work. Is the screen back?
No.
Oh, it's not good. I love technology. Just doesn't particularly like me.
What did you change, Carl? Because it was there. Saw that lovely picture of the shoulder
I didn't
fish.
touch anything, Your Honour.
Are you sharing the right part
anything?
of the screen? Because if you're sharing a slide deck,
I'm sharing the whole screen just to save complexity with Zoom.
Can you transfer it to me and I'll share it?
It's the same one.
Oh, you changed it slightly to the one that
So
we
you're
saw.
now a co-host, Sabrina.
Okay, let me open up. It's going to be slightly different because I know you made some edits, but give me a couple seconds and we'll test if I can share it. I'll facilitate for you.
Do some editing on this. Sorry, everyone. I live in the countryside, and therefore the world of technology hates me.
It's cool. It's an agile meetup. It's cool.
How's that? Can everyone see my screen?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Which slide are you on? And Carl, you're going to have to just politely go, next slide, please.
And if I have to be polite, I have to be polite, I suppose. Yeah. So we're on to the slide with just the fishes in it.
Okay. Go for it.
So I'd got as far as just talking about how the fishes operate in this environment and what value it gives them. So the next bit is humans also operate by instinct in work. Large groups of people with a common and agreed way of working creates comfort. It makes life easier knowing how you fit in, even if it's not where you want to be, at least you know. And what we're really talking about with people is people have psychological safety in their current ways of working, and change in that has a huge impact on their identity, how they relate to their colleagues and their sense of value. It affects their surety around the future of everything, because work is such a huge amount of what we are and what we do. And it also impacts their response to change. So my main sort of feeling from this is, you need to have a strategy with people if you're going to bring in any kind of change into an organization. And your change strategy then determines if you're working with a group of secure adults or a whole load of angry teenagers. And that's kind of my first kind of vignette. I'd like to sort of talk about people that have been involved with change work. How has it been taken? What responses have you got from people? I can stop filming if you'd like. I'm happy to do that because I'm more interested in what we have learned collectively rather than a video. Anyone want to jump in about how it's worked with them in terms of bringing change?
Okay, I'll kick off then, Carl. I've gone through a journey myself from a way of seeing agile work making my life easier, of seeing it make other people's lives easier, and then all of a sudden coming up against blockers of people who don't want to change. And so, yeah, I've found that the thing I'm spending more time on these days than anything is how to get to know people, how to build relationships, how to make them trust me and make them like me, so they actually allow me to make small changes that they can then see a difference with. Yeah, definitely people thing.
Yeah, so it's more the being able to show value to people so that they can onboard it as something that they want.
I don't think it's always even just showing value. I think sometimes, because value is a perception in people's minds. If you talk value, you talk about the work that's going through, but actually everyone goes to work for a different reason. And it's that reason that you need to try and connect with.
So are you aware of a common collective reason apart from the money, or is it just the money?
I think it's infrequently money. I know I asked one exec and he said, "Oh, it's for the money," and that's fine. I knew where I stood. But the majority of people don't go to work just for the money. They go to work. They stay with work because of the money. But if you want to make a change from what they're doing, then you've got to bring their other values into play. And off the top of my head, I can't remember what they all are because they're all so various.
Okay. Does anyone else have a perspective on this? I'm sorry, this is quite a different kind of a talk because it's not a talk. As I said, it's a conversation. I'm interested in a community view because I don't think there is a correct view. I think there's just what we've done and what we're hoping to do.
Carl, I'd like to add something if I can.
Sure.
As a guy who deals with transformation quite a lot, if you have a shared destination rather than the value of the money or the benefits, and that is in the conversation, a lot of people will buy into that. So a lot of the conversations I have are come and join me or help me or get me to where we're trying to get to so that we share in what happens when we get there. And I think you're right about it's not the quantity of how much money we're going to make. It's about how much difference we're going to make. And certainly over the last couple of years, people are now asking that question. How can we do this differently? Right? How can we actually not go to work and be depressed and stressed and put under pressure? How can we go to work whistling the tune going, hi ho, I'm off to work, right? I'd love for us to be in 10 years time looking back, and I know you and I have sat in and a few other things. What is Agile going to look like? What is the workplace going to look like? I hope, and certainly you and Sabrina were on the other night, I hope we're not having these conversations. I hope we're not saying to each other, oh, we need another transformation methodology. Let's try something else. We'll have almost voted ourselves out of office. We'll have achieved what we want to achieve. And the workplace will be somewhere where we share reward. Many years ago, I've had two careers, one in IT transformation and one in chefing. And I used to share my budget for the year with my team. Now, I'm trying to get that done in IT. I'd love that when we finish a piece of value, that I give 50% to the business and 50% goes back to the delivery team. Not many of my peers like that idea, but I do. So I share what you're saying. I think that we're up for change, right? What we're doing now is not working for anybody. It's stressful. People are calling off. What have we got? The highest sickness rate in Europe or something. We got to make it better. So I just wanted to chime in with a little bit, and I think we're on the right roads. I mean, guys like yourselves and Richard, and certainly Sabrina, and you know, the whole Agile Festival team. At least there's a conversation going on. At least there's hope. Sorry,
Yeah,
I rambled on a wee bit.
No, that is what this is. We don't have a predetermined agenda. The whole purpose here is, as you say, is to have the conversation, and that's why I didn't want to do a talk. So I think Brad's got something to say, but he's very kindly said, does anyone else, because he is a participant, he likes to participate. So he's also said, does anyone else want to speak or say anything?
I think the more conversation, the better. Bring it on.
So the question is about your transformation work and working with companies, and not even necessarily transformation, change. How are people dealing with change? Are they preferring to move with the shoal of fish that they're already in, or are they open to change? And if they're open to change, how are you getting across that message? How are you engaging with them?
So I personally find that people struggle with change because they misunderstand. People push back from change because they misunderstand, because either the information hasn't been relayed to them, or they're scared as well. That's another reason why people don't like change, because of fear. And that can actually stop a transformation, because people fear the unknown or fear what the next step is. And this is where communication is the key, really, to be able to make sure you communicate in the same language and make sure everybody understands, so they don't be fearful. Yeah,
and I think that's the instinct pit that we have when we've worked a certain way for 20 years. And I don't mean whether or not we're involved in just-in-time production, or whether or not those are methods. I'm talking about how we work, which is we go to an office or we go to a client base, and we work through a number of scenarios to get things changed. You know, the people we're working with have set procedures and processes, and they know what they are, and they know how they relate, and we're going to change them. Now, how do we get the message that what we're doing is going to help them, when in fact, to start with, we disrupt them?
I think people take, sorry.
No, go.
I think people are usually pretty logical in their own context. If they're going to push back, there's usually a pretty good reason, but it might just not be a safe reason to explain it. I don't know whether they misunderstand the change, or whether we're actually looking to do. Sometimes we're trying to change something, but it's actually really stupid. So I think I think part of the problem is that traditional methods have never given time to different people's opinions, and the hope with this is that it does give time, but time still needs them to appreciate that we're trying to listen. So I don't know. I'm just coming at this.
That's a really good point. It's I think one of the tenets of Agile is that most of it is emergent.
Yeah, so
I'd love to pick up on that. That's a brilliant point. The number of times that we go into large organizations and you find 2 or 3 people who will say this to you: yeah, I don't do it that way, I do it this way, and it's quicker, better, faster, smarter. And I go, that's almost agile. And they've managed to, you know, they know that this big monolith is doing this, and they decide to do this,
Yeah.
right? But they don't tell anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you've just said there, Michael, is brilliant, right? When you come across and you say to them, you should tell everybody else you work like this. Oh, no, I just do it because it's easier to do the accounts, or it's easier to do HR. It's easier to, I just do it in my own little space. And I go, no, I'm a transformation guy. You're going to tell everybody that we work differently. So I think you're right. There is small pockets. We just sometimes need to join them up in big organizations and make sure that they're talking to each other. And then I love the graphic. I was just thinking about that. Sometimes it's about showing them that there is a different way. You don't need to be working in this prescribed way. And I love what you said about the human conversation. Talking to, and by the way, the C-suite are also human beings. I think I said this before, right? The C-suite are human beings. They're not the CFO particularly, who's always the big scary guy, women, you know, whatever nowadays. But they have the same motivations as we do. They want to be better. They want to be quicker. They want to be faster, smarter, whatever. And if you have that conversation and go, listen, we're going to make mistakes and it's going to fall over and we're going to shout at each other, but the goal up there is to be a bit better and a bit, you know, smarter, and we have a better place to live. So, no, I like that, Michael. Yeah, there is already people out there doing this. We just need to get that voice out there and make sure they're joined up. Yeah, I'm talking too much. I'm going to shut up a wee bit.
One comment I have on kind of the last two thoughts that were described is the first of them seemed more to me like an issue of, or a question of, how do you build trust, get them to trust you? And then this last one with the guy who says, oh, this is what I do, but doesn't want to say to other people, that strikes me, and perhaps I'm wrong, as more of excuse me, an issue of psychological safety. Are those two things intertwined and you can't establish one without the other, or can they be established separately? And if so, which is more important to try and establish first, or does it depend on who you're talking to?
If I, Brad, that's brilliant, right? I'm quite a noisy, you know, arse about face kind of guy. I make a lot of mistakes, but I do a lot of success as well, right? And I think sometimes when I just bundle into, you know, situations, other people who are ready to talk up, they go, well, look at the mess of him, right? And nobody's killed him, shot him, you know, thrown him out the building. He's not on the ledge. I think that happens a lot in answer to what you just said. I think you're right that sometimes if we do just get in there and go, look, we're just trying to make it better, right? We're not trying to, you know, reduce the bottom line. We're not trying to get rid of 25 million people. We're not trying to change, you know, Windows to Linux. We haven't got an agenda, right? Other than trying to make it better. And I do, I bundle up, and all of a sudden 25 people in the room will put their hand up going, do you know what? I was actually thinking of this. So here's what I'd like. And all of a sudden I've got 25 people in my group now who are desperate for change.
So you've given them the psychological safety, even if it's by making yourself to be the point at which people go, I can't possibly do any worse than that.
Yeah, I think so, Carl. Yeah, I think so, honestly. And, you know, recently, I do most of my work in financial services, and they are the most uptight, like you wouldn't believe, because everybody's got a physical gate that they've got to go through, whether that's procurement, whether that's, you know, deliverables, whether something that needs to be paid for, right? And then they turn up with one of our teams and we go, we don't know what we're delivering yet, so we can't tell you, so you can't invoice, so you've not got a stage gate, there's no risk because I don't know what I'm doing yet. You'll get 70% go, what on earth is this? And 30% who go, love it, having some of this. And they get in the boat and they start rowing with you. And you just think, if we did a wee bit more, Brad, I love your point about that safety, right? if I'm willing to get shot at, but I can sit with the chief executive later and go, I'm trying to make your organization better, pal. I'm not trying to F with it. I'm not trying to, change it to the point where we're not still making money, but just make people want to come to work in the morning. And yeah, I don't put a term on it, Brad, but just if people can sit in a room of 30 people and go, he's all right, and we know we need change, and we all buy into the message, and let's just do it. And I'll give you an example. We were recently at a financial services organization. They're 350 years old in the city of London. COVID hit, and I got asked a personal favor. The people who were making the budget decisions had been so used to meeting in the city every Friday to make decisions that none of them had laptops at home. Could I help set them up at home? And I was thinking, wait a minute, the people who control billions of dollars in financial services, and they'd never thought of a different way of working. They meet every Friday, somebody puts a budget in front of them, they go like this, they have lunch in the boardroom at the top of Leadenhall, if anybody knows London, and that's the way they do business. And something came along that stopped them in their tracks, and they had no way of knowing what to do. So they, ironically, and I'm going to put this under Karl's banner, they had to be effing agile, or they wouldn't have got next week's meeting done.
Yep, that's great.
Guess what got the biggest support in the boardroom after that? The Agile Transformation program.
But that you often have to do little things in organizations to show, one, that you're not a threat, two, that you're an opportunity, and three, that actually you listen. So, Brad, you're on the edge of your seat there.
That was brilliant. I'm sorry, what you just said. Those are little pieces of building trust. Because I was thinking, in my case, very often, if I, try and make the case that, I'm here to help, I'm not an independent consultant or work for a consultancy. I'm usually working for the employer as a, full-time employee. And I don't know, in the States, there was this big kind of famous movie called Office Space. I don't know if it got, big outside the States, but there's this whole, we're from corporate, we're here to help thing that goes with it, which of course is not the case. And I think far too often, the first time I try and give that message, it doesn't necessarily engender trust. It probably evokes, office.
Yeah, I've got a really strange historical story to that, Brad. Many years ago, and
Mark, I'm gonna stop you on this one, and can you hold fire on it, and we'll have it in the general conversation. Just because I think we're monopolizing the conversation between a very small group, and two, I want to move on, and I do want to hear your anecdote, but can we have it at the end? You're not too offended?
You'll find that I'm never offended by anything, big man.
Okay, thanks a lot.
You want.
Well, yeah, I won't, because I'm being recorded.
I'm a transformation lead in the city of London. Do you think that's the worst I've ever had said to me?
Right, okay. Yeah, I've done that as well. Sabrina, can we move on to the next slide? Sabrina tuned out. So I'm going to put some quick definitions in, because I've made quite a bold statement about organizational agility. So let's go into what these reference points are. You move to the next slide. So work is the activity involving mental or physical effort done in order to achieve a purpose or result. So work isn't actually getting to the office. Work isn't standing around having a coffee moaning about poor salaries. Work isn't doing shopping on your lunch hour that extends to 5 p.m. at night. None of these things are work. Is actually to deliver a purpose or result for the organization. And I think that's why I've honed in on, organizational agility being about the future of work. It's not about the future of all the other stuff. That I can't make people work in doing a transformation. That's not my job. My job is to create an environment where people want to get their jobs done. All right. Do you want to move on to the next slide, Sabrina? Well, thanks for turning up, by the way. So organizational agility is the company's ability to rapidly change or adapt in response to changes in the market. So, you know, again, people are very much focused on we're bringing Agile or Agile's happening to us. Actually, Agile itself is not the end. It's not even the purpose. The purpose is to facilitate organizations to be able to adapt and to be responsive. And that's the essential part here. And I know that over the years, I've seen many different ways of working come in and be dropped over a period of time. I look at Agile and I think it's not really one of those. It's kind of an opportunity to fundamentally change, but embrace what's good within the existing organizations and not have to change everything. You know, I worked in an organization that brought just-in-time production into it because I was an engineer a long time ago. And we used to call it JOT, just out of time production, because it didn't work. It was based in a mindset model of the Japanese, who would basically consider work to be almost like a faith, and not working effectively is tantamount to turning away from God. And in Britain, we don't really have that same belief around work, and so it didn't work as a way of adapting manufacturing. So I think it's quite important that we understand what we're doing here in terms of bringing in organizational agility. And can just move on to the next slide. I'm doing it in 3 slides, and then we'll have a quick chat. So the next one, Sabrina. So scaling is really an interesting thing. Scaling is actually a scientific thing and is not purely let's have a punt. So scaling is a technique, a method. It actually has a tempo, and it has values, or at least not outcomes in the way that we often describe technology work or business work, but it has a value of increase, levels of better. And all the scaling techniques are based on order, description, distance, and origin. So there has to be a sense of when you scale something, that you're scaling it to something to be able to then understand how successful it's been. That doesn't mean to say that you scale to an nth degree and you know exactly what the outcomes are. So I've put those in there. I don't think they're a discussion topic because actually I didn't write any of them. I just lifted them straight off the descriptions. But if anyone wants to challenge those, I'm perfectly open to a challenge.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that's made me think. It's good because I always, scaling just meant bigger, for want of a simple word. But when we do transformations, do we actually say, what's the distance, what's the origin, or the description? What are we trying to achieve? And I know that I like to have some kind of direction in there, but direction's not a distance.
Mm-hmm.
So potentially, are we even using the right word by saying scaling agile?
I think we're probably not, but I also think that we should challenge what we're trying to do. So one of my most hated terms in Agile is test and learn. Not because it's not a good idea to do it, but because there's a sense that we know what we're going to learn. And people don't seem to like chaos. And I think that if you're going to test something, you should take it back to the true scientific notion that you have a starting point and an unknown in the future, and actually embrace that unknown rather than saying we're going to deliver something in a certain way and it's going to work this way. Well, what's the point of doing a test if you already know the results? I think Brad's about to cry. So I think scaling is a really good word, but it doesn't mean what people think it means. And that's kind of interesting. So that's why I think scaling organizational agility is the right terminology. But it pushes more experimentation in.
Yeah, people don't like experimentation though, do they?
I think they're afraid of unknowns.
Yeah, I think also people are afraid of doing work. So the unknown's not what the result's going to be, but they're unknown whether they're actually going to produce value for the effort they've put in, because people are paid to do work. Back to that descriptor again. They're not paid to bring a benefit to their organization, which so perhaps we ought to be paying people to bring the benefit to their organization. I can't remember who on this call also said that they like to put half of their money back to the developers who actually did something.
I don't think Elon Musk is paid to do work. I think he's paid to challenge the status quo, and I think there's a lot of people in senior roles in organizations that think they're the only people that can do that.
Yeah, that's it. I think people in the senior roles do push things. They do try and that they've got a wider remit, but further down the chain, and we were talking about the financial industry, so let's continue. You have so many layers of command that the people actually doing the work are doing what they've been told, not doing, as I said, a benefit for the organization. And actually, we need to turn that on its head.
Yeah. So, Brad, you've had your hi, Mark again. Brad's had his microphone off for a bit. Do you want to?
I didn't. I was adjusting my camera, but on the point of scaling, yeah. Sometimes scaling can be presumed because they're scaling up versus scaling out. And often when people use the term at scale, they may often presume the notion of economies of scale as opposed to, which is different from simply flat out scaling. Economies of scale is definitely based on a different model that's more Six Sigma like, and it's different from, say, economies of scope or economies of flow.
Anyway, the reason for giving these definitions is to get people to think rather than to come to conclusions. I think someone was saying in the chat, about trajectory, but there is no trajectory in this. There's a starting point only in scaling because it says origin, so it's ordered. Description, a distance you want to travel, and an origin, but there's no trajectory. And I think that's people from Scrum taking it on board and going, well, we have to have a trajectory. Well, why? Why don't we pivot as we learn? Why don't we evolve? That's what humanity has always done.
By trajectory, do you mean destination, or is it different?
So no, trajectory is just the direction in which you're seeking to move.
Okay.
Anyone else want to challenge those terms of reference?
I don't want to challenge it. I want to reinforce it. We already work at scale. Unfortunately, we work at scale really badly, and we manage to scale shit everywhere. So I think it's not the issue of scale, because we've got big companies. I'm in one with 550,000 people globally. Doesn't mean to say that we're very good.
I think I used to work for that one.
I'll probably get fired for that. But I'd like to go back to something Richard said, and it's really important. Every product, project, everything you do should have a return on investment, whether that's personal, financial, or technology. If I go to a yoga class, I'll get something out of it. If I spend money, I want something out of it. Buy a new pair of trainers, I should run faster. If I put $5 million into a technology project, what am I doing it for? Well, what's the point of it? And a lot of my chief executives sort of open the door and go, "Good afternoon, do you know who I am?" And I go, "Okay, yeah. What are we doing?" "Nah, I've got $15 million to spend on a transformation budget." And I go, "What are you trying to achieve?" "Oh, we don't know yet." Goodbye. It's almost like, here's the door to failure. Do you want to walk through it? No. So I think Richard's got a great point. All technology should be a profit center. It should be an enabler for business to do business, right? Many years ago at the Royal Bank of Scotland in Edinburgh, we couldn't go to the toilet without a business plan, right? You had to have a justification for what you were doing. And if you didn't do it. And when your boss said to you, you're 360 or 180 or whatever, effing fucking new HR thing, why didn't you do this? Joe Bloggs told you to. Don't you know who he is? Yeah, we'd have lost money. Oh, okay. And that ended up making Royal Bank of Scotland a challenger bank, who then went on to buy NatWest. And with that thinking, it's not detrimental to the humans in that chain. It actually protects them. And I'm answering Richard. When we are returning value back to the organization and we say, we want to take 15% back, they go, all right, you made me $9 million. You want, 2 back, fine, have it. And then I do distribute it to the team. So it's not an unusual concept. Somebody comes to you and says, I'm going to use your skill. I'm going to pay you $1 million. I want 3 back. You take 1, I'll take 2. Great deal. So I thought I'd answer Richard's, who's paying the team back out of the business benefits that we give to the business? Me.
Well, that seems fair. And I think the other thing is that a transformation piece of work should be fulfilling the organizational strategy. We already know what the organization wants to achieve. It's in their strategy. What happens, however, is either there's not great leadership, so the transformation flounders. There's pushback from the organization for change, and the benefits that could be delivered are often not delivered. Not always. Sometimes you get massive benefits, but I think the key thing here is we know the overarching guide rails because the organization exists to do something and has a strategy to do that. It just doesn't know how to get there. So that's my 4 pence worth on what transformation's for.
No,
where does learning come in? Because if you're going to learn along the way, you need to make mistakes, and the most efficient is actually, of all your experiments, you want 50% of them to go wrong. You make a mistake, you learn something to get the maximum learning. So where does learning come into this? Everything's got ROI in the front.
So
you ever asked the chief executive to kill a project? 30%,
so
yeah, I have actually.
So I think there's constructs there in terms of organization, but you're right. Experimentation is critical, but you don't need to experiment big. And this is the other thing that people get wrong. People do a POC that costs $100,000 when they could do one that costs $1,000.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, the intent of doing an experiment is actually to mitigate risk, to reduce your risk. So therefore, you want to do something as small as possible, learn as cheaply as possible. But as Stephen was saying, learning is a very valuable expense and should be something on the almost on the balance books to say we will spend so much to learn.
No, exactly. In opportunity cost, right? If you fail in, and you spend $10,000 and you're going to be in that organization for 5 years and you were going to make 50 of those mistakes, you've just saved yourself $500,000 just by spending 10 grand. So it's a great point, Richard. And a lot of, I'm an agile guy, I want us to fail quickly. I want us to make an arse of things and then throw away and start again. But, I go back to DSDM Consortium and XP and RAD. So many, many years ago, I used to put prototypes in front of people and they'd go, "This is rubbish." And I went, "Yeah, but you got it in a day." If we could almost get back to those days, you go, "This is shit, isn't it?" "Yeah, good. Right. What do you want?"
Yeah, because clients can't
Listen,
often
I
understand.
take up too much of your bandwidth. I need to get off.
That's okay. I'm going to move on to the next section, if that's okay with everyone. I'm just going to push out some details. So if we go straight into the next slide, and just look at some organizational constructs. I particularly like the Microsoft one. I don't know who did this image originally, but it's hilarious and also quite true. But there's quite a few organizational constructs that we work with. So hierarchy, everyone knows. Functional structure, I think people are aware of in terms of divisions of skill sets. Divisional structure in terms of focused on usually a product or a set of services. Flat structure, which is most common in startups. Matrix structure, which is really common in really large organizations where you have often a manager of a team who then sources their staff into project work, or may in fact be matrixed around a skill set and a work location that will constantly change, which is quite common, certainly with consultancies. Team structures, people are very much aware of in Agile. Network structures, people I think are less aware of. These are more transitory, and they are nodal. They build as they need to build, but they are still encapsulated around a focus, which are very closely related to projectized structures. And then hybrids, which are quite common now. There's lots of different ways of getting things done in an organization. The one that I experience most is obviously transition structures, where people are trying to move from one thing to another. But organizational agility, I think, is a slightly different thing. And because we know all of these other ones, we kind of need to be aware how it differentiates. So I've got in here the Amazon one, which is classic hierarchy. Google one, which is just astonishing. It's actually a divisional structure, but it's chaotic beyond belief. I like the Facebook one, although it doesn't work very well, because I've actually talked to quite a few people in Facebook about it. Apple one, it does look like a cult. I'm not sure how people feel about that, but that's what comes across, unfortunately. And the Oracle one is self-replicating, which is really interesting. And the Microsoft one is holding each other to ransom and waiting to get paid. And we can't move forward with this entire project because it involves 5 vendors, and all those vendors are all Microsoft, and none of them will pay each other. Hopefully it's got a bit better than that over the years. Marina, I don't know why I keep calling you Marina. Sabrina, can you move on to the next slide? That's twice I've done that. So what I want to talk about in reference of organizational agility, and you get it with projectized structure and hybrid structures, is they're flexible in their target states. And I think that's fundamentally different to most of these other organizational constructs. Even a transition structure will often have a target state, a place when the transformation ends. So people can wash their hands off and walk away and say, we did our job, it's done. And I think what was interesting, certainly with one of the big banks I worked with, is that my job wasn't to fulfill a target state. It was actually to set in place the ability for the bank to be continuously moving and responding to the market, which is going back to the purpose of organizational agility. Do people want to come in on that? Because that's quite a quite a major statement of intent for organizational agility, and it's certainly a counter view to how people understand transformation, and it picks up on the we know where we're going statements.
One question I have on this is, which one of these seems to resemble what was the espoused Spotify model, back around 10 years ago, which obviously isn't what they use today, but which still so many people try to copy?
So they had a network structure. So they were tribes, and I understand. I mean, I actually got invited to work with them, and I turned down the job because they was very prescriptive in their flexibility, if I put it that way. You had to do it that way. There was no other way, and I think that ultimately killed it.
Thank
Mark, you were warming up there.
I think this is a great slide. I think this should be at the start of everybody's presentation for a transformation, because it highlights all the areas that you want to smash with a hammer. I had a great privilege to work with some people who had been abroad and fought some wars, and I don't know the structure of my team until I see the problem, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're doing a transformation that is in a particular area, I need to build a team that's going to break that and change it. But you've got a great point. If you turn up to that gig, move on next. It's just you're going to spend most of your time in a educational role. Why should we change, rather than actually getting change done? And don't be scared to say no, right? And I think, Karl, you're very brave in saying that you have said no. And I think that's right. That's the way you're going to get your message out. When a large organization says, I want to be agile, and you turn up and you go, nope, they then reevaluate and phone you up 6 months later going, yeah, we've had a look at ourselves and we're not going to be, so can you come back in? So great slide. Love it.
Okay.
That should almost be a checklist. if you see any of that Karl Smith's red, don't do it. Just don't do it.
It's really fascinating though as well, because in a hybrid structure, and this is where Cotter and I reference his book quite a lot in my work. You can do an agile transformation in a small part of the organization, and you create a hybrid structure. So you build some level of flexibility, and the minute you leave, the hierarchy moves to crush it, because it's a threat to their shoal of fish. It's a threat to their community of activity and how they understand work. So
like
hybrid structures. Sorry.
Sounds like antibodies. Destroying the threat.
Yeah, I think so. And maybe that's right. Do you see what I mean? I don't know. For that organization, that might be the right way to do it, to go in every so often and create a hybrid structure to move change along until they're ready to change on a bigger scale. But I think the point is that I was involved in e-commerce since 1995, and people are like getting already excited now. We have to move to e-commerce platforms, and I'm sitting here laughing my head off, because for years and years we told all these companies, you need to have a web presence. You need to. We don't need that. We've got our shops. Okay, but what happens? That will never happen, and it happened.
Currently known as the blockbuster model.
Yes. Yeah.
Just wanted to raise one point, and that is that if you're doing sort of partial transformation, i.e. transforming or working at a transformation in a department, like for example, software development is typically one that people gravitate towards. isn't that there a risk of creating silos within the business as well?
Yeah.
Which means that it's less effective.
Yeah, and going back to the earlier point, I do believe that there's a major problem of crap in, crap out. That we have business people saying, do it because I said do it, and they don't understand the implications. So you've got development teams working so hard to make this crap work but they have been pushed into a silo. They themselves are adept and agile and able to evolve, but the ideas, so the portfolio level is just chaos. If there is one, it may well be on a napkin that someone had at lunch. Let's do that because so and so is doing it, and you're thinking, well, is that business or is that a boys' club?
The problem is that you know, with respect to C-level, I think that's actually the way a lot of them work, is that they go off to the golf club and they have a conversation with someone. They say, oh, well, that's how he's doing it, so perhaps we should do that too, and see what happens, you know, and that's the problem.
There's a really easy conversation here. When they come in from the golf club and they've had a couple of beers and they come to you on a Monday morning and they say, I want this transformation, and you go, what's my expected business benefits on this? And you go, I would like to be able to return 25% to the business. Is that what your numbers say? And they go, what do you mean? Well, there's no point in me getting out of bed in the morning and if I'm not generating value for the business. Because if I generate value for the business, like actual dollars back in the P&L, why are we doing it?
Yeah.
They'll go back to their mates back on the golf course going, I nearly spent $10 million on FO. So one of my guys, girls, whatever, has actually challenged me and I've not spent $10 million. Can we have that round of golf again and go round again? So the risk is up there. Leave it up there. Leave it with them.
Yeah.
And honestly, I know sometimes I come across like, I've done this, right? Everybody knows my LinkedIn profile. I do this at scale. I do this with chief executives. They don't want to spend $50 million and get fired in 3 years for achieving hee-haw. They want to put money on the profit because they want to be the next chief executive or wherever they're going.
Yep.
So honestly, you will never get fired for saying to a C-suite person, where's the benefits? Show me the benefits case. Is it cost avoidance? Is it revenue generation out of a new stream? Revenue generation out of an existing stream? Why am I doing it? And what am I expected to get back from it? You have that simple 5-minute conversation, they'll F off. They'll just go, shit, I was going to give him $50 million and it was a failure. And I was on, you know, Letterman and NSBC, DFG, whatever fucking channel they're on. And just challenge them with their own language. Just say to them, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
Stop giving me stuff that is going to fail, because then you'll fire me. I'll get into trouble for it.
So I've worked with, again, going back to manufacturing days, a long time back, my standard response was, will we maintain our 200% gross profit margin? You know, I can see if we talk this through that we might actually, there's a seed of an idea in here that's got value. Let's work it through. And, you know, I've actually worked on stuff that we ended up making 900% on. And people are a bit shocked, but remember, it's manufacturing, so the actual initial cost is not huge. But you can, I think you can talk people around to the focus on, as Mark says, you know, do you want to keep your job in the future? Do you want to add to your prowess as a C-suite person by delivering an amazing piece of work? And I think that is a fundamental thing. Kind of wandered off into the business politics there, but it's great. Sheila, all right, okay. I thought there was someone. I thought Sheila wanted to speak. Then we're open to anyone's views. I do feel a bit like it's a male voice choir here.
Oh, I'll be happy to speak, but I don't know if things work the same way with the companies I've worked in. Because I'm thinking about I've worked in financial services about half the time and about half the time in other kinds of companies, but all of them in the US. And in some of the companies, they get to the point where they reorg so often that everybody says, oh, I kind of know what my job is. It must be time for another reorg. And I have had it happen to me quite a number of times that an executive announced something publicly as a fact. Oh, we're going to launch such and such on this date. I mean, one that I really loved was I worked at MCI years ago, which was a telecom, and it wasn't a joke. We would watch the Super Bowl to see what we needed to support the next week based on the ads that they put in during the Super Bowl, which gave us, and it was always a secret until that happened. So I don't know if they had a strategy or not. They sure never figured out if it was supportable. But the other thing was, you talk about matrix structure as fixed state, and most of the time, the organizations I've worked in, it's been matrix management, where there might be an administrative manager that just was responsible for people managing and matrixed everybody out to other organizations. Or in some organizations, I had direct reports, but I matrixed them out part-time to somebody, and other people matrix people to me for different tasks. And I keep saying in meetings that I've been in that I sort of look at Agile as part of a Mobius strip between Lean and what was going on even before Lean. That I think it's more of a continuum, and there isn't any perfect solution. So people keep going around and trying first one thing, and then the pendulum swings too far one way, and then they try something else and it swings back. It may be a little more stable where you are than it is with the companies I've worked with.
So I'm going to respond to that because I think that's quite important. So being a matrix structure is a fixed and has a standard operating procedure in target state. What we're focused on here is to do with transformation. And what I'm really trying to get to is that transformation doesn't have a known state. It is unknown. And especially organizational agility, because now you could say that a project is a transformation because you're transforming how you deliver a piece of work and you're having to respond, as Mark said, to what you need to get the job done. But ultimately, that's the intention behind organizational agility, is that the whole business becomes much more flexible in how it responds. And there's no reason why you can't have bits and pieces of other things there. The point here is to be flexible to respond to the market, not purely an executive concept or idea. And when I say the structure changes, I mean the whole structure changes. How you engage with the legal team, how you engage with being paid changes. And this is a level of flexibility that no one has really experienced before, unless you work in a startup. And I think that's what the opportunity here is, that bringing that startup kind of mentality into enterprises gives them, well, above all and else, the ability to survive. You know, if you're forever cutting costs and people to make yourself leaner, to make yourself cheaper, then you know that's a reductive thought process around business. You're never really going to innovate and produce new ideas if you've got no people to come up with them and no way to deliver them.
Maybe even though we were structured in something that was a matrix structure, it may have been more of a projectized structure from your perspective, because it was set up to support specific projects. And if there were not additional projects, most of them were related to products. And if there weren't additional projects coming along, they'd probably do a layoff.
Okay, I mean, it's I need to be careful that we don't get wrapped up in semantics as well. It's your experience is valid.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what you mean by these things, because to me, they, in my experience, they've been kind of mixed together. Maybe hybrid is the best.
I think maybe hybrid is in terms of what you're suggesting, but I think the other thing is that they are commonly used descriptions within organizational design, and I wanted to put them out there and really make it clear that for most of them, they don't have the ability to be adaptive to the market. They literally are what you get, and once you're in them, HR will fight tooth and nail, and any other policy owners will fight tooth and nail to maintain them.
Not to be the bearer of bad news, you're gonna unfortunately lose your facilitator in 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
I'm so sorry. I don't want to do.
Well, I'm gonna just run through the last few slides quickly, because then we can have a general conversation and go back to bits. So I put together a number of well-known films to help me talk through the last bit. So what does known look like, and its guide rails? And from the Agile perspective, the statement that always comes to the head to me is save the humans, Agile values, and then Agile ceremonies. And after all, it's all for the greater good. Sorry about that. If you can move on to the next slide, Sabrina. So scaling the unknown is a bit of a monster. How do we really do that? Because we don't know what we need to do in order to scale it. And I've got a number of high-level components. I don't have a solution. That's the point. I'm not trying to sell a solution. You'll move on, Sabrina. So one unknown is measurement, and it's a common one where people jump in and say, we need to define KPIs and OKRs, and I would disagree. They need to be emergent. How can you possibly know what your outcomes will be if you don't know what your structure will be and where you're going? All you need to do in measurement is define the starting point. You must have a starting point. You must accept that that's the starting point. The senior execs need to accept that this is where things are, and you move out from there. Next one, please, Sabrina. So the next one is experimentation. And I've got this statement: launch out into the shallows. Don't launch out into the deep. Iterate what does not work, which sounds stupid, but iterate it again. Find out why it didn't work. Don't throw away something because it didn't work. Find out why it was it personalities? Was it the environment? What were the factors that caused it not to work? And then iterate what does work. Next slide, please, Sabrina. Interrogation. Interrogate. Believe nothing and no one. I'm sorry, it sounds really negative, but actually it's really helpful. In this classic film, there is no spoon. There is no truth in organizations. There's simply agendas and experiences. And everyone is driven by perspective. So there is no truth. What you can do, however, is interrogate what you're told and don't believe. And form an opinion, but don't become an arbiter of someone else's opinion either. Last one is evolution. Change agents are changed by the environment. Expect to be changed, to have a different perspective from when you start. Because if you aren't being changed from what you're doing, you're applying a template, and therefore you're not really helping an organization, you're helping yourself. Right, I'm just going to do the last two slides, some resources, and then Sabrina will go back to her day job. Thank you. So I really love the Kotter book. I think it's really, really helpful. It's terrifyingly sad also, but also very relevant, I think. I've done a few books. The middle one at the bottom, Agile Unexpected Journey. If you want to participate in that, that's a community book. I can send you the outline. I'm looking for a chapter per person that's been involved in Agile. because I don't think any of us as kids went to school and said, I want to get into Agile. So I think it's an interesting thing, and I want to help people. I want to help people understand there's many ways into this. And the last slide is just a bunch of links to me. So Sabrina, thank you very much for stepping in and doing that. I was having a number of technical issues.
Just so you know that I've actually copied, screenshotted both slide 19 and slide 20, so you don't miss out just because I've got to drop off. So you've in the chat for you. So I hope you all don't mind.
Ever marketing focused.
I can't leave you stranded, my darling. I can't. It's been lovely. Lovely to meet you all. I'm so sorry. I have to jump off. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Sabrina.
So the last section was really just about some insights, some experiences I've had. Again, I'm open to being challenged, but I can't really undo them. I would like to. I would stop waking up in a sweat each night then. So we have space for an open conversation. I don't know if you're all conversed out or not, if you want to go back to challenge other bits and pieces from what I was sharing.
I think if I could just roll back to the beginning, you mentioned, and it's true, that one of the biggest things that affect transformation and which can affect it badly is fear. So I think that, and it's about creating kind of integrity, trust between senior management or the consultant and the staff or the crew who are affected, typically. And the problem is that most transformations end in headcount reduction. That's a huge issue. So in order to try and prevent that from being kind of highlighted or perhaps becoming a dominant thought, the way I would suggest is through transparency and inclusion. So instead of excluding people from the process of change, ask them for their ideas, ask them to engage. As Mark said, there are little patches within a business where people are doing things differently anyway, in spite of what is going on around them. And they're doing it because they've discovered something which is more efficient. So bring these ideas, highlight them as being positive and not as negative, and create, even a shared post-it board somewhere for people to see what's going on and get engaged, to chuck their ideas into or onto the board, and then have a kind of like a company-wide engagement, or certainly department-wide engagement that's affected. So just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Yeah, Michael, I definitely see that hand.
I'd love to come in on that, right? That is such a brilliant, important point. In any large-scale transformation, don't get confusion between transformation and time and management to get rid of people.
Yeah.
The message has to be clear that the transformation is to make the business better. There might be a cost avoidance element to it. You then bring in HR and find out what are the 3 elements to support people who may be impacted, and put that as part of your plan. Put that as part of a way of dealing with, guess what, human beings, right? The minute you see transformation, everybody thinks job cuts. And that's what the person just previously just said, right? That has to stop. Every transformation doesn't need to be job losses. It can be, how do we work better? How do we move people to the right front that makes the best value? Because these organizations, certainly in the space that I'm in just now, they're not set up properly. And they know that. They've worked badly for years. So the person before has got a great point. we as transformation people need to get across the point that we're trying to make the business better with everybody. There shouldn't be casualties. There should be us transforming and moving people that still keep the same numbers, but generate more money, more value, more profit, whatever that value is that they have in their minds at the C-suite. Because if you don't, you're not going to get anybody to accept change. They're going to sit there going, if I don't join in this, I'm not going to get fired. And that goes all the way up to the silo captains. That goes all the way up to the, operations guy, the finance guy. If I don't do any change, I'll be fine. So I think it's a great point. I think that you need to make sure that everybody knows it's a transformation, not a time and motion, survey to see how many people I can get rid of.
And every business says our greatest asset is our people, and then they start getting rid of them. So I think that's the thing, is that the greatest asset is the understanding of personal interactions within the business that is vested in the group of the people in the shoal working together. So, I don't work in Agile Transformation to get rid of people. I work on Agile Transformations to give people another way to work. And a great Agile Transformation doesn't actually get rid of anyone. In fact, usually we'll end up employing more people because there are skills that the organization doesn't have that it needs to bring in specialists to instill into the organization. Now, those people might drop away and move on to another project later, but the actual intent of Agile is to better make use of the core resources that an organization has, not to reduce them.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're going in to try and improve an organization. So, if the organization is trying to change its cost ratio, then actually the best way to do that is to bring more revenue in. Let the organization expand. Dropping people off doesn't actually improve your cost ratio. It means some of your costs have gone down, but your generation has also gone down because you've got less people able to actually deliver what you were doing before. So actually bringing in proper organizational benefits, and not doing some of the stuff just for the sake of doing it, which a lot of large organizations do, is probably a far better effective way of doing things.
I love that, Richard. I got to tell you, the first time that I told a chief executive that what would I get rid of first was him. Yeah. Where's the least value and the highest cost? It's you. So I love what you just said. It's brilliant. And yeah, sometimes you got that difficult conversation. If somebody says to you, give me a true reflection of my business, and you go, you're the highest cost and the least value. So according to Agile, I need to get rid of you first. And they don't like it. Some do. I've had a couple of them go, and please excuse me, I'm a Glaswegian, I swear a lot, I do apologise. I've had a couple of them go, fucking hell, Mark, you're right, I am the problem. So I go back to what I said before, the C-suite are just human beings as well. But yeah, Richard, you're right. When we're putting that mirror up to the organisation, let's do it honestly. Let's go like that. Where are our blockers? Where are our problems? Where is it finance? Is it procurement? Is it software development? Is it whatever it is? Let's not beat ourselves up about it. Let's go. We're being honest with each other. This isn't working. Come on, we'll have a change of this, right? Come on, we'll change this bit, and we'll leave the rest alone until we come back around to it. But yeah, great point. I thought I would share that. Chief executive told me to go F myself after I told him he was the biggest expense.
So I think the best part is to be truthful up front, and by doing so, if you get an early exit, that means you get to find a client that's not going to waste your time. They cause you so much stress that you can't sleep. So I think this is the bit that we need to rationalize in the ways that we work. That actually we don't work for everyone. We work for the people who are willing to change. So. And to gain the benefit of that. But I think the other thing is it's a myth that Agile gets rid of people or that it speeds up work. It doesn't do either of those. It just makes things more visible. And if your department does nothing, then it makes that department that does nothing more visible.
Yeah,
I love that. That's brilliant. You should put that on a slide. That's open with that. Open with it. That's brilliant. Because look, all Agile's trying to do, right? When Ali and Arnie and all the boys, we've met them, Carl, Richard, we've met them all. They said the same thing, right? They were just trying to solve a problem that you were getting $5 million projects. You were going away for 15 months, and by the time you came back, the business had moved on, and they went, "Oh, this is wrong. What we doing?" Right? So. I got to say, and Carl, you and I have seen a couple of things. This festival has been the biggest thing ever to bring the conversation globally. I love it. I got people now at work going, "How did you hear about that?" And I go, "Hang on, how do you fucking know about that? It was two Scottish guys with a few pals. How do you know about that?" Right? So you've really succeeded on a global scale. I have people where I work. I have people where I work contact me now to get in touch with you guys. Cool. Because we're going back, and you've had Ali on, you've had Arnie on, you've had the boys from the Manifesto, you've had people from the DSDM, Joanne, everybody. Let's not be here in 20 years. I know that's a crazy thing to say. Let's not be here in 20 years. Let's fucking change what we said we were going to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, pal, I love it. I love what you say. I love what you do. I've connected with everybody because I think the more we connect, that symbiotic relationship that goes out into the world, people won't be talking. Were you agile in 2021? No, I just work normally, pal.
It's just the way I walk.
We'll have done. yeah, exactly. That's what we'll have done.
I couldn't.
That's just the way the work will be. It won't be a big thing. There'll be no transformation from here to there. It'll just be done. People will just work normally, and they won't have to do 17 fucking hours a day. They'll do 9 hours a day. The dollar value will be out the door, and we'll have a normal life. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm a.
Sheila, what are you going to say?
Well, saying that it's done is just wrong. Because things keep changing.
Yeah.
People change, systems change, environments change. So there's no such thing as done. Mm-hmm. And that's when you call it, I have a problem with the word journey, as that it's a journey, not a destination. But if it's an ongoing journey, I think it's really more of an evolution, but it's an ongoing evolution. Because everything's going to keep changing and the rate of change is speeding up. So the transformation that was perfect for now is going to be totally obsolete. I don't know. I mean, if we'd been looking at what we were going to be doing this year, a couple of years ago, would anybody have said that things would be the way they are? I don't think so.
Unfortunately, because I'm a futurist, I kind of predicted it. But that's I didn't know it was a virus that was going to cause it, but I predicted
it was going to happen eventually. But as far as the timing and how it would come about, that's and I've always hated the question where they say, what are you going to be doing? What do you see yourself doing in 5 years? And so much of the stuff I've done didn't exist 5 years before.
Yeah. I mean, just to say, I didn't predict home working. I predicted that people shouldn't invest in smart cities because we don't need cities. That's what I said. We don't need cities in the way that we think we need them as a centralized resource hub. so that people could actually much more easily work from home and then use more nodal engagements. So, you know, you can already conduct brain surgery from Australia to the USA using IP6, and you've been able to do it for 3 or 4 years. So the notion that you have to go into a hospital is no longer true, not in the same way. And I think the pandemic's shown that doctors can adjust, nurses can adjust. There still needs to be some hands-on engagements, but I think that a lot of our society is based upon these very ancient ways of working that we find out we don't really need them.
Yeah.
Can I do a little punk challenge? Why can't we have a destination? Why can't we have an end?
Well,
Why can't we have really good delivery that doesn't involve failure? Why can't we achieve that?
I didn't say anything about failure. But you can have a number of, what would you say? You can have a stopping point where you get off and get back on, I suppose. But if you think you're going to stay there, you're going to be another Blockbuster, because people keep changing and people like to revert to the known. So when you get people to change, as soon as you leave, they go, oh, good, he's gone. Now I can go back to what I was doing. So
I can back that up with absolute, honestly, I have had people from clients phone me back and say, the minute you were out the door, we went back to, I agree with that 100%. However, it doesn't stop me every morning getting up trying to strive for difference, right? And every organization that I join, I say to them, what is it you're trying to achieve? Well, we do it this way, and the boss said we need to do it this way. And I go, then let's not do it, right? Do you want to be different in the way that you do your job? Yes. Okay, tell me what it is. And that I engage. And I get your point, Sheila. I do get your point. It's difficult, and I do it on a daily basis. It's really difficult. But we need to change, right? 40 years ago, I was writing my first line of code, right? I have kids now who don't change the way that they do that. Now, in some industries, that's really good. House building, that's really good. Pyramid building, that's really, really good. Don't stop building pyramids the same way, because they stay up that way. Same with houses, they stay up that way. But with software development, the way that the market's changing, we need to change. Customers are changing on an hourly basis. They'll put 3 apps on their phone and they'll switch from yours to the next one in a heartbeat. So you've lost $1 billion of your first round of investment because they've gone elsewhere. It's just, I get it. I never argue with anybody because everybody's right. They all have their view and their experience.
Everybody, not anybody.
No, I do. I don't argue with anybody because how could I? How possibly could I? Because I don't know your background, your experience, the way that you've gone about things. Mine's is mostly an experience-led, view. Because I know I transform big organizations. I do on a daily basis, but I'm still an old software developer on the BBC Micro in the UK 50 years ago. So I'm not saying that any way's right. I'm just saying that along the way, I've found some really good practices that I think most organizations could pick. And make more money.
The only thing I disagree with is the part about it being something that's going to end, because that means an end to evolution of people, of culture, of life itself.
So is there an end? So I consider it a dropping off point. I don't stay with companies forever. My job is not to be their shepherd, as it were. My job is actually to give them the tools for them to own their own continuous flexibility. That's what my role is, and I bring in other people to do that with me. And there's an ebb and flow in the specialists who come in to support businesses, and you're upgrading people's skills. So there is an end point to my involvement in a transformation, and in many people's senses that's when the transformation ends. But actually, true transformation is revolutionary, and that means it comes around often. There needs to be a period of time where a business has some level of stability in order to, and when I talk about transformation, I don't mean changing how software engineers work. I mean changing how HR works. You can't have a constant change in HR, because that impacts the ability of staff to get paid. Those kinds of constructs. So I deal with whole enterprise transformation. Now, can you make an environment for developers where they feel that they can constantly evolve how they work? Yeah. As long as they're still delivering benefit to the business, then yeah, I don't see any problem with that. But I think there are some complexities and difficulties in saying to an enterprise that you've started transformations that will never end, because they need to have some sense of surety around stability for their organizations. Now, maybe they will evolve to that sense where they build that flexibility into the thinking, and they're constantly able and open to change. I don't know. We haven't got there yet. I don't know any company that has. And that's what's quite exciting, because we don't know what the answer is.
I think you can have way stations.
Yep.
Where you have stability, but again, then people start building little kingdoms. So then the transformation will need to happen again because things evolve.
Depends what's in their contracts. So this is why I go for HR, because one of the most important things I can do in a transformation is rewrite the contracts for everyone, not just for internal staff, but all vendors as well. Most personal contracts are based around what I get and what the business gets, not about how we do things. And you can rewrite a personal contract or a vendor contract about how we work and build that into it. So that creates a secondary set of protocols around what's acceptable practice.
Yeah, and in the organizations where I've worked, there would be masters, and then there'd be specific statements of work, and each one was different, and the rules that you worked under were different.
So I've actually delivered servant leadership into an enterprise in a place that I worked as a PAYE employee because I thought it was a better model. When I left, it got crushed, but it worked, and I was getting sort of 150, 200% work from people, not because I was doing anything, but because I created the environment where they could choose what work to do. And when they had difficulties, because I'd been in most of those situations, I was there to support them with my anecdotal experience. And I was partner level. But the point is, I was always available. My phone was 24/7. I was always available. And that's a I wasn't written into my contract, but going forward, that's how I would want to work with people, is to be 24/7 available. So that they can solve the problems. The classic thing is, my job is to say where we want to get to, or where I think we want to get to, and people come back to me and say, well, we could do this, this, and this. And actually, I don't really care how we get there. If in a purely business sense, I don't care how we get there. As long as we don't break any laws and we don't hurt anyone or any of those, we maintain our moral compass and those sort of things. I don't really care how we get there. What I do care about is what do we learn? Do we come up with more potential ways to make money from what we've done? And if you can find a quicker way or a better way to get there than I've suggested, tell me now. Let's work this out together, or better still, involve me when you need me, when you think I'll add value to what you're doing, because you're the person that actually delivers the value. I'm just there to facilitate. Right, it's a bit radical.
I went to a talk that Jeff Sutherland gave a few years ago, where he said that one of the things that happened was you'd get the teams up and running, and they'd be self-managed teams with servant leadership, and then management would be observing, and then a few weeks, a few months into it, they'd say, oh, now I understand this, so now I can start making assignments again.
It's actually very difficult to be a servant leader. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, because I look at what people are doing, and although they're in a relative time box, I think I could probably do that quicker, or I could do that this way. But actually, that's not my job. My job is not to do their job. My job is to facilitate them, either when they don't know they need help, and I don't go in and say you're doing it the wrong way. What I do is I go in and say, have you considered these factors? Have you considered these opportunities? Have you look at a wider landscape? Because a business person who has a responsibility over it is actually a strategist. They're not tactical. So if I offer a tactical view to people who are focused on, I offer a strategic view to people who are focused on tactical. So yeah, I understand why managers might want to go back in and start giving things, because it's so frustrating to see things happen that you think you could do better in, but you just have to grow up.
I don't even think it's frustrating to see that you could, because really the challenge is to get people to see it for themselves and own it.
Yeah, I think I agree. Again, I was working in a hierarchical organization, and I just created for the organization chaos. But what I did was I gave the workers the ability to, I created a backlog of all the work that was coming into our area, and I allowed them to self-organize around the backlog. I didn't even create teams. And that's why there's so much work was being done, because people were fascinated by the opportunities that they were open to it, and they self-organized. The only rule I set was that if you were taking an accountability level for any one group, then you couldn't have more than 4 other groups that you're involved with, because otherwise you would be swamped. So I put some supportive measures in, but not nothing to do with how they would individually work, apart from a level of protection.
But if you were allowing them to choose the work that they were going to do, were they giving any consideration to the value to the business, or was the business involved in that decision?
So this was the business backlog.
Okay.
So there was a prioritization set in the backlog over what the business believed to be the greater priority. However, within that backlog, the teams could challenge the priorities and seek details on the business model that related to those priorities. So the point here is one, workers who do the actual work understand better than the people setting work what needs to be done, and therefore what's already done, what templates are there, what possibilities are there. 2, many of the business rationales, as I previously said in this conversation, are perhaps not very good and actually don't stand up to inspection. And so I think we got about 70 pieces of work in at one point. Of the 70, about 5 ended up on the floor because they were vanity projects. So I think that's, but normally people wouldn't get that close an inspection on their work, at least not by people who have to create it, have to resolve it into a product or service. I think we've maybe worn out the conversation. Unless there's anything else that anyone else wants to add, I'll probably end the recording. We can carry on talking though.
I was just thinking about, it was in the 90s, so it was well before the Agile Manifesto, that I was doing something where we were doing continuous process improvement, and we got together people from that represented each business process area and that represented the systems teams as well, and talked about each of the things that I forgot how many there were, but we took a certain number of priority items from each group and discussed them all, and everybody had to discuss their items and why they were the most important and vote on them. And it was also based on what could be done together. And that way everybody was marching forward with the same understanding of what they were going to do, and why the thing that was most valuable to their department or their business process wasn't necessarily the most valuable overall.
Mm-hmm.
And why we would do what we would do. And then but it was a group agreement. It was a consensus. It was a true consensus. And it was a process we went through. You know, I don't know how well that stood the test of time, because I don't know if they continued to do it for any length of time, or if they went back to, you know, warring kingdoms as soon as they could.
So I've actually done that with the board of a major organization that makes £6 billion a year. And they'd never seen a post-it note before. They didn't know what they were for. And I made it clear that we actually, drop my picture. I made it clear that we have 3 billion Karl pounds to spend on your next year's worth of work. Tell me what the priorities are. And individually they all create, so basically we're doing an affinity diagram. So they create what their list is, and then we put them up together, and then I say, right, we're going to agree the priorities. At which point someone twigged and said, is this a game, Karl? And I said, no, we're setting the priorities for the next year for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, we have too many priorities. We can't manage all this work. What do you normally do? Oh, we just normally tell people to get on with it. I'm going, right, but you're not going to deliver. So how are you going to deliver? What is the things that you most need to deliver? And I got them down to about 4 priorities. And there was a 5th priority that had a conflict. And I said, look, we need to agree now. I don't want your managers 4 levels down fighting over resources for this thing. I want us to agree now. So we're going to have a debate. You're going to explain why you should, from your divisional view, have this done, as opposed to the person who wants something else done. And they'd never done it before. Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Your board was an internal board where they were actively involved in the business, not just an external oversight body?
No, this is the CEO and CFO and head of technology. This was the board of a major UK corporation.
When I think of board, I think of an external oversight group that not the CEO and the CIO and the CFO and those.
Yeah, so it's board of directors in the UK. So it's the executive, the top executive class, level 0. Yes, Mark.
We also have legal and compliance, Sheila. So everybody in FS always builds in compliance, which is an external body, which always comes up with something new from left field. So I guess Karl's got the same experience. Whenever we run
I've had the same experience. There's always, there's legal and compliance issues no matter what. And they'll come up with something new that you have to do, and that becomes the priority because it's legally required. So it doesn't matter what you decided you were going to do, you're going to do what's legally required so that you can stay in compliance and in business.
So there was, we didn't, this organization didn't have any of those factors. They were not in a controlled working environment. It wasn't FS. But the important factor here was to get the top of the house to understand that you can't have everything at the same time, and that to do one thing you can't do something else, and to have flexibility built into how they think about getting work done instead of just pushing it through a silo.
I think we're sort of saying the same thing.
Okay.
But it's, I mean, it's something that's an ongoing thing. And once you walk away, in my experience, you'll get these nice processes in place, and then everybody will backslide into, I want to go back to the way I used to do it, where I could just say, make it so.
Yeah, and that's quite common. That's, as I say, Kotter talks about the networks being crushed by the hierarchies. And this goes back to, did it deliver something into the organization they didn't have before? Maybe it did, but wasn't so widely publicized. So one of the main things I do in my transformation work is I employ someone to deal with comms. I don't make change quietly. I make change loudly, and I tell everyone, because that's part of the transparency model. Where you have people who are fighting against what you're doing, you don't fight them. You just tell everyone what you did that's so spectacular that they stop talking about not doing things, because they look like they're fighting against the will of the company.
Well, yeah, so then they just make the changes back quietly.
Yeah, I'm going to be hopeful.
Oh, I'm going to have something to say about that. Obviously, no, Sheila, no, no. If you believe in what you're doing and you have evidence that you've done well previously, shout about it, right? Tell everybody, make sure they know.
I mean, obviously, an organization, if you're making organizational change, you have communication plans around it, usually multiple communication plans to multiple audiences over long periods of time prior to the change, and then again, recurring communications to reinforce the change.
Yeah.
Which is why the revisionists try to sneak back quietly. And it doesn't go back to what it was before. So you do have a new normal. But you do, but it is.
You always affect somebody. You will always affect somebody. Right? You will.
Yeah, I think we have to be reasonable about it and say that, yes, Sheila, you're right to a certain extent. You'd always get people in, you've worked for a CIO and a new CIO comes in and sees the world differently, or you've worked for wherever you worked, it's a common occurrence. The point here is that, as a consultant, I'm in the nice position to be able to cut and run and go to another organization that does want the benefits rather than people that want the parrot fashion, and that they want to have the sheen of Agile without any of the actual value. And I think over the last sort of 15 years or so, I've seen quite a lot of organizations say, yes, we're Agile, and they've gone out of business because actually they weren't Agile. They were not able to adapt. I mean, I know of a huge multinational company owned by a holding company in Italy who declared last year, yes, we are Agile, and they haven't even adopted anything yet. Doesn't
that count? They adopted the word.
No, sorry. No prize, no cigar, no T-shirt, no hat.
But they went really quickly into administration.
Yeah.
That was so
it's I don't feel sorry for them in the slightest. It's like people saying we adopted e-commerce, but we didn't. Yeah,
and then there were other companies that were doing e-commerce and didn't realize that was what it was.
Yeah, so I think it's we're going to always have that problem about the naysayers and the people who say they've done it and who haven't done it, but those that do will survive, and actually, more importantly, survival, they'll flourish, which is really what we're trying to help them do. We don't want them to stay surviving. We want them to beat the brains out of their competition.
I worked in QA for a while, and I always found that if someone did the design and development, that they couldn't do the testing because they were going to miss the same things based on their own thinking about how it was supposed to work. If they missed something in design, they were going to miss it in testing as well. So you always wound up handing things over to somebody else who would have a fresh perspective. Maybe it's the same thing with transformation, because I still think it's an ongoing thing that maybe, yes, you walk away because you've contributed what you could at that point in time, and you turn it over to them, and maybe they do it internally. Maybe the next year they bring somebody else in to do another transformation of some sort. And then maybe a couple years later, you come back in and say, what happened? And you help them do yet another. Because
so I've actually got the concept of an agile auditor in the book I've written about agile transformation, because I don't believe people should be allowed to mark their own homework. So I agree with you. I think that's an essential piece. But the idea of not letting designers review is actually, I would let designers review the output of software development, and I would let software developers write their own tests. I like test-driven development, but I would still have other kinds of testers.
Oh yeah.
You know, so I think that there needs to be lots of different kinds of review going on, but only if it helps us adjust direction or change the thinking around what we think is the right way forward. I think that's the other thing. Is it's
Carl, Sheila, you're going to have to forgive me. I'm going to drop into a call at 5:30. So
I need to drop as well. So thank you everyone.
Sorry I took up so much time and I talk so much, but thank you.
No, it's been great. Thank you very much.
Inspirational, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
For me too. Thank you.
Thank you.